welcome to another installment of IGB webinars delivered to you in partnership with the newly launched ice365.com website. As part of that launch, we also released International Casino Content Series, which is really a series of content pieces all focusing on the global casino industry, in particular the land-based industry, really looking at the reopening as the industry is coming out of the pandemic, but actually also at openings. So as you should see at the next slide, these are just some examples of the content pieces that were released a couple of weeks ago in a period of a week. Again, all focusing on the global land-based industry. And one of the key topics discussed during that series across a whole variety of the content pieces, both video and editorial, was obviously the shift to online as the result of the pandemic, and really what that means to the global land-based industry. And this is what we are going to talk about today, what our experts invited to participate in this panel will be talking about. We have gathered an amazing session with experts who are really bringing experiences from different levels of that land-based to online crossover. And before I hand over to a wonderful moderator today, I wanted to thank you all for your participation, thank our speakers. Also, big thank you to our sponsors, Geek, for their support in putting this session together. Just in terms of the organizational points, this webinar is being recorded, so you will be able to re-listen to it and share it with your colleagues. And also there is an opportunity for you to ask your questions. Please use the Q&A functionality for it, and do ask your questions throughout the webinar. We will be picking them up and putting them forward to our experts during the session. That's it from me. I'm going to take myself off a webcam and hand over to Tina, who is really a well-known industry expert and personality, huge supporter and collaborator with Clarion Gaming, known as an industry consultant, but actually really well known for her efforts to improve the diversity in the industry through the All in Diversity project. So Tina, thank you so much, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Ava. And no, thank you for having me. And it's going to be my pleasure and privilege to take you through the next kind of 45 to 60 minutes of discussion. Just to echo Ava's sentiments, I think we've struck gold with the panel. You could not ask for a better set of knowledgeable, experienced individuals to help those who are looking at navigating rather choppy waters and how they go about transitioning their land-based operations to online. As Ava said, we will look at picking up questions from the audience as we go. But for those of you who are unfamiliar with these gentlemen, I'm just going to ask them to give a quick introduction about themselves, their background, and why they're here today. Ben, if I could start with you, please.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Tina, and thanks for having me here. My name is Ben Clemes. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer of Gaming Innovation Group, one of the co-founders. Been in the industry for about 15 years now, working on both sides of the business, both B2C running brands and on the B2B side as I am today. It's a pleasure to be here today. Gaming Innovation Group is a platform providing player account management system, sports betting. We've moved very much into the retail to digital transformation space, powering brands across multiple markets, Hard Rock in New Jersey, Sky City in New Zealand, Magic Jackpots in Romania. And we have more and more digital challenges coming on from the retail brands going online in various markets. Grupo Slots going live in Buenos Aires later this year, for example. So thank you. Thanks for having me.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Ben. Jonathan, if we could perhaps hear from you.
Yeah, thank you, Tina. Excuse me. So similarly to Ben, I've worked in the industry for about 15 years. Very passionate about the convergence of land-based and online. I spent about 7 or 8 years in Asia, a spell in the US, and came back to the UK, where I'm originally from, to lead the omni-channel development for the Rank Group. And it's been a core part of Rank's investment and direction over the last 4 or 5 years, and we continue to invest in this space. We're fortunate that the regulations in the UK are very favourable for operating in digital land venues operations. So we operate about 130 venues across the UK and in Spain, and we operate over 100 brands digitally as well. Our flagship multi-channel brands, Grosvenor Casinos and Mecca Bingo in the UK, and in Ratcha in Spain.
Brilliant, thank you so much. And last but by no means least, Thomas, if we could hear from you, please.
Thank you, Tina. I work in the industry for 10 years now. I work for a German land-based operator, the Baden-Württembergische Spielbanken GmbH and Co. And we are basically famous for the Casino Baden-Baden that everybody is aware of. I'm working there and am responsible for HR and legal. We have 2 more casinos in Stuttgart and Konstanz, and I'm also involved with the Land-Based Casino Association, Deutscher Spielbankenverband, and represent both German land-based casino associations, the Deutscher Spielbankenverband, and the Bundesverband Deutscher Spielbanken, which is the privately owned land-based casino side or in Germany in the European Casino Association.
Brilliant, thank you so much. Thomas, you're kind of based in a jurisdiction which is currently looking at that shift as we speak, where you've got land-based historic operations and the pandemic, as well as a huge amount of kind of unregulated operators have been kind of pushing the iGaming and online side of things. So let's hear really from you to begin with, if we may. What are the challenges you're facing right now? And as an operator looking at the shift from retail to iGaming, what are the pros and cons from your perspective?
Yeah, sure. So I would like to introduce you real quick into the regulatories in Germany right now. We have an interstate treaty that started at July 1st. It was introduced last year. And in Germany, there are 16 different states. We call them Länder, and every state basically signed that interstate treaty. And every state now has the opportunity to fulfill that interstate treaty with their own state law. There are small states in Germany with 680,000 citizens, and there are big states in Germany with close to 18 million citizens. And every state has a different regulation despite of the interstate treaty. And obviously in every state there's a different status how they implemented the interstate treaty into state law right now. And there is therefore also a different constellation in every state with how or who is going to be offering online gambling in each state. Mostly it's linked to casino licenses, but there are other constellations possible as well. 1st of July was the deadline, and so far no casino operation has launched online. The question basically is when will be the first online casino, when will it start, and in which state will it start? Obviously there are many questions concerning that start and the regulations, and how can you do it, and do you even want to? So I would dive into the pros and cons. I start with the pros because there are many pros to start an online gambling business as a land-based operator in Germany. First of all, it's a single market. You can concentrate on your state, and you will be the only provider of online casino games in that state. If you are in a small market, this might be not so fortunate, but if you are in a bigger state in Germany, there are quite some opportunities to have there. You will not have any legal competition in online table games, as I mentioned, and you have the opportunity to have an omni-channel offer online, and you can link your table games offline with your casino games online. That is a big opportunity. So you basically have the distribution channel online and offline. And another pro is obviously that customers mostly are already familiar with online gambling offers because there was a long duration of gray market in Germany. There was no regulation for online gambling, and there was no punishment for online gambling operators in force in Germany. So the new interstate treaty is a step forward, I think, and with some pitfalls, but also some big opportunities. You can, as an online operator, you can offer customer loyalty programs, you can offer benefits to your customers. And one of the big pros that land-based casino operators have when they start online is that your customers that have been with you for decades, basically, they will trust you, and they will trust you more than any gray market operator. You have to convince new customers, or obviously, who have not been in any of your land-based casinos, and but you have the opportunity to also convince customers that have been with you to register for online operations that would not have done so because they didn't want to operate in or play in a gray market. You have a big opportunity to establish good responsible gaming in the online sector of table games. Another con is obviously that your brand is there in the land-based market, and customers know your brand. So the brand awareness when you start an online gambling operation will be there. It's not going to be as big as if you have the big players in the online gambling industry compared to it, but there will be some brand awareness. And you have the opportunity to win online customers back, and you can also win them back and try to convince them to come back to your casino as well, because you will always offer online gambling in your single state and not in any other state. And the casinos that you operate in that state, they will be attractive for the customers to also go there on a Saturday evening. You can advertise the land-based casinos and revive the activity, obviously. The question is, or basically it could be a pro, it could be a con, is it financially viable? And that leads me to the cons. Is it financially viable? There is an opportunity that there's a chance that it's viable, but there are also cons for that financial side. You have startup investment, you have to get staff for that operation, you have to set up digital infrastructure, you will need to implement support, you will need to implement reporting, and you have to face financial restrictions for customers that are pretty big in Germany right now as well. And then you will be either a smaller organization in the land-based sector with a small staff, or you will be a mid-size organization with a bit more personnel. But there are no big operators in Germany right now. Another con is that you will have to work with unfamiliar partners in the online sector, and you will have unfamiliar customers as well, because the customers online are not the same and then they are offline. And let's face it, you will have illegal competition as well. Besides the licensed online offers that are possible starting from July 1st, you will also have illegal competition question there is, will it be enforced, and will that competition be stopped by Germany, by the state, or will it not be stopped? And you have a big uncertainty concerning tax. That is quite high, and you will have regulatory problems basically in the KYC, know your customer side of the operation. You might have to calculate that there are higher requirements and therefore expensive requirements, and these are quite some big ifs actually. And then you have a big uncertainty if your own offer is attractive enough to compete with the illegal online gambling providers. So these is a quite a summary of the pros and cons I would see at this point.
So there, from if I'm hearing you right, there are opportunities if you get lucky with the mix of regulation and the state that you're available, you can actually get your hands on. But equally, there are a lot of cons, and as an operator, you really have to think about your return on investment. Jonathan, can I ask you, as a fellow operator who has perhaps navigated these choppy waters, what's your take on this?
Some good points by Thomas there, but I see few cons. If I'm honest, at a very high level, your customers are likely to be playing online with other people. So it's a share of wallet argument to operate online, and whether you want to retain some of that customer spend into your business. So in the UK, I think the last UK GC report suggested that on average, customers have 3 digital accounts at any one time. So, the evidence is there. We know that customers are playing online, which is fine, but do you want to have your brand online as part of their consideration? And we've been fortunate. We've been operating in this space as a multi-channel operator for over a decade. And we see incremental revenue in both channels. So we know that the multi-channel customer is more valuable against the digital-only customers in digital. Usually a sort of 3-4-fold increase on digital spend. That's pretty common in the industry. But we've also seen significant increase in visitation and loyalty to our venues. And I think that omni-channel approach pays dividends, and you've got an opportunity to communicate with your customers when they're away from the venue and be part of their consideration.
Brilliant, thank you. So, very similar to Thomas, you're seeing opportunities, but also challenges perhaps you need to be mindful of.
I think,
Ben, can I
just quickly, just a very simplistic way of looking at things. If you're going to move into digital and it's completely new to you as a land-based operator, you should be thinking in the same mindset that you're opening another venue, and the spend and investment needed to be successful online. You could take a very similar approach to launching a new venue. You wouldn't just throw open a new venue on the high street and expect customers to attend and walk in. So if you apply that logic into the online world and spend accordingly with above the line spend, acquisition, marketing, then it will set you on a pretty good footing, I think.
Okay, that's really interesting. Really interesting. Because your approach is to almost say, right, if you're coming from a land-based background, this is a new venue, and you're almost starting again in that location with the customers, the education process, the engagement. But we've also heard the multi-channel side is of interest, and also that the fact that actually, as a betting person, I would say a large percentage of the German population is familiar with iGaming. So I think I'd be really interested to hear what Ben has to say, given Ben has experience in a number of different areas, but also from a kind of provider and technology background as well. What's your take on the pros, the cons, but also then looking at the technology options?
Yeah, I mean, I very much agree with Thomas and Jonathan's points. And the last point Jonathan had with regards to looking at this as essentially a new venue, a new venture is so very valid. I mean, from a technological point of view, like the right partner, I think can assist in relieving some of the cons. In general, like the people that you have on retail aren't the same resources that you're going to be using for the online operation. There's a different skill set below the online marketing CRM strategies. So, I mean, different sort of technological partners out there, like we have our managed services department where we can, and we have provided these managed services to partners like Sky City where they don't have the expertise in-house. At least get them through the transitional period from sort of going online to being fully operational, and then they can pick and choose and take in those services in-house that make the most sense, rather than having this big scary operation in front of you where you're kind of going alone into this new world without knowing exactly what you're doing. So I think the right partner to give the right support from the get-go. And yeah, I think when we've gone through these conversations with retail partners going online, a lot of the fears around cannibalization of revenue, and I don't, from the data that we have and the results that we've seen, it's like the online journey is more of an extension of revenue. I was saying yesterday when we were having sort of the pre-call, I went to the Barracuda Club, which is one of Jonathan's properties in London, and I registered an account, or registered to go in. And then I got a nice email saying that, why don't I check out this casino? And it was a Spanish casino because I live in Spain. So I probably wouldn't have come back to London for quite some time, but now I've got the opportunity to play online on their Spanish site as an extension of revenue, a site that I hadn't heard of when I was in Spain, just because I'm not so much in the Spanish online space. So I think, I do think that depending on the regulation, the pros very much outweigh the cons, and cons can be alleviated, again, outside of regulation, because at some point regulation can become so prohibitive that it doesn't sort of make the online project viable.
Thank you, Ben. We've had a question come through just on the tech side of things, so I'll stay with you if I may.
Yeah.
I mean, from your perspective, and then I'm going to ask Tom and Jonathan as well. Should casinos be aspiring to own their own technology?
It's a complicated thing to build. I've built it, so and you continue to rebuild and reinvest into it. It's not just build it and walk away from it. You also have the consideration that you've got, I mean, iterations and sort of regulations, so you need to keep rebuilding, reiterating your platform, your tech stack, what you're sort of offering. And then in a lot of cases, you have this sort of short period of time from when regulation is going to take place to when it's established. And our first platform took us, I think, 1.5 years to build, and then you've got reiterations on top of that. It's an ongoing thing. So, I very much consider that an MVP to sort of where we are today. And the other consideration as well is that regulation doesn't stop, even though Germany or the UK has gone live. I mean, Jonathan can probably attest to this. Like, there's something new from the UKGC or periodically that's sometimes minor changes and sometimes quite significant changes from a technology perspective, as well as the overhead cost of actually running this. 24-hour system operations monitoring, database, data warehousing. It's not easy. So I mean, I would go with the platform. I guess I'm somewhat biased.
Do we know anybody who has platforms, Ben?
Yeah, I think I know one person.
That's brilliant. Just before I come to Jonathan, Tom, can I ask you, please, because we've had a question come through as well, saying that as an online operator, must you have a German land-based casino first? in order to get a state license to operate an online casino. Now, if that is the case, that perhaps shifts your approach to technology.
Yeah, so I can't speak for every state in Germany. It's different in every state. It's kind of similar, but it could be different. There are different approaches, but in the interstate treaty, it is like that you will have to first, the casino operator will have to get the opportunity to have an online operation. So if you want to partner up with that casino operator as an online-based company, that will be totally possible. But there are some constellations possible as well, that you might partner up with multiple German states, like smaller states. They could partner up, and there would be 4 states that have 4 casino licenses, and they would be able to offer 4 different casino operations online, but they could also offer only one in 4 states. So there are multiple possibilities and multiple ways to go, and that is not something that I can answer universally.
Thank you. And without putting you on the spot, we've talked about land-based casino and an iGaming or casino or slots license. Would somebody with that kind of license also be able to extend their product suite to things like maybe virtual sports or sports betting or bingo?
So like the online casino games, they are off the table basically, but there will be virtual slot games available for everyone, for every operator in Germany. There will be sports betting opportunities for everyone, and only the online casino sites, so the table games online, they are quite limited. And everything else, poker as well. So that is also something that will be available for multiple providers. But the table games that are basically offered in casinos every day, like blackjack, roulette, that is something that will probably go to mostly to online, to land-based casino operators.
That kind of, I guess, makes for an interesting landscape then. So, Jonathan, if you were looking at having a footprint in Germany, how would you approach it, given what Ben has said about technology and what Thomas has just said about the space in which you're operating?
So if we were a land-based vendor based in Germany looking to go online, I think both gentlemen's comments are accurate. I think there's a longer term approach to this, and you do it in bite-sized chunks. So launching digitally, it's an unknown world. It's a completely different business. So you need to partner with somebody that's going to help you navigate that space. And ideally, you'd want somebody that has got the technology platform, the managed digital services elements. And if you wanted the icing on the cake, you probably want somebody that's familiar with land-based operations, because they're, linking the two together to provide an omni-channel experience is very different to running a digital business. But you look at that in stages over a 10-year period potentially. So Ben mentioned Sky City's approach to operate with an outsourced partner in GRG, but longer term look to bring some of those resources in-house. I think at Rank we've taken a similar approach. We work with third-party suppliers. There's some great digital technology in the market, but we've also acquired our own proprietary platform because we want to control some of the development and put the destiny and speed in our own hands. So it's certainly a step-by-step approach, and Rome wasn't built in a day. So I think just doing it with partners that can help you navigate that space initially would be my advice.
And just staying with you, we've had a question come through, just based on experience. What percentage of land-based customers actually do transition to online?
It's a good question. Just trying to think of some of the data points to reference, but I can say that it's been the backbone of our organic growth in digital over the last few years. So and certainly in the casino side of the business, we acquire customers from our venues into digital frequently. So it's a complete myth around cannibalization. And I mentioned earlier the sort of loyalty, stickiness of those customers. They return to your venue, they visit your venues more often, they spend incrementally more in the digital channel. So I'd be encouraging businesses to consider that, because the cannibalization myth has been dispelled over the years, I think.
And is that your experience as well, Ben?
Yeah, very similar. I mean, you've got these amazing properties that companies have built, which are basically like acquisition channels. And if you don't have this sort of digital extension, then you're welcoming these people in, and likelihood is that they're going to go home and play online with one of your competitors. It might not be one of your retail competitors, but it will be an online challenger that is, good at marketing, good at retention. Then this customer will go back to you periodically because they like the thrill of the retail environment, the restaurants, the entertainment that you might have on property. So I think you just end up losing that revenue out the very expensive door that you built. And we've seen companies do it very well, where the extension from retail to online is seamless. The messaging is the same. They want to extend the amazing customer support that they have and the services that they have from retail to the online, so the player still gets looked after in the same experience. I think it's a bit like the old throw the brick through the window. Like, they've gone there, they know if they've got a problem, they can go there in person and ask for help, or especially in more complicated regulatory environments where you've got to do source of wealth and more due diligence on KYC. I mean, the feeling that you could actually walk into a property and say, "Can you help me with this?" Some people are adverse to speaking to people on live chat and email, especially people that aren't so internet savvy. Like, they can go on. Sometimes they need help to register an account or do that first part of verification. So, I think there is amazing value to having that retail element that can help support that and be that supporting sort of foundation to your retail journey, your digital journey.
Thank you. Thomas, we've heard from people who've lived the experience, if you will. Do you think it would be exactly the same for you and Germany, given what you've kind of just talked about in terms of the carve up of products and licenses?
Yeah. Basically, in Germany, we have a pretty careful approach because the uncertainty is there, but working in the ECA, in the European Casino Association as well, I have seen some rather remarkable success stories in other European markets with the online business in smaller countries that are quite comparable to the situation that will occur in Germany as well. And the online business and the legal online business has been growing there ever since. One of the most important factors there was always, as far as I know, that you had strong digital partners, and that was paving the way for that successful business. And other than that, these uncertainties, they were overcome pretty quickly. So I expect that to happen in Germany as well.
And can I just, we've got another question come through, which is actually really very interesting. I'm going to stay with you because I think it's asking you an impossible question. So it'd be good to get your gut reaction and then go on to Ben and Jonathan as well. So I would imagine there are online operators, whether you call them grey, unregulated or whatever, offering live dealer solutions already. Is that something you would look at doing, but live dealer perhaps broadcast from your own premises? And I'm
Yeah.
sure Jonathan in a moment can give us a little bit more information on live streaming and all that kind of stuff. But then the follow-up to that would be, how do you kind of position that alongside things like traditional casino, but also sports betting, which, as I understand it and have experienced myself, remains one of the most popular forms of gambling in Germany?
So yes, obviously, German casinos would like to work with live tables online as well. If it's going to be a partner that already does that in a studio, that remains to be seen. There have been many talks, I figure, in Germany with all the operators of land-based casinos already. I myself had some talks as well with these operators. There are interesting factors to consider. It's a very interesting product, but obviously the strength of German casinos is that they have live tables in their casinos every day. And this will be something to look for as well. So German land-based casinos would want to strengthen the online experience by offering these live tables online as well. I think this is not excluding any other live table experience, but this is something to consider that we would like to offer our live tables, land-based live tables online as well. Yeah.
Brilliant. And would you also look at having a sports betting license and a slots license?
That is not our thing we would look for right now, but obviously if you speak about omni-channel, multi-channel, this is something to consider in the future. Sure, because when you want to keep your customers and you want to give them a good experience in your online operation, you would have to think about virtual slot games. You would have to think about sports betting. You would have to think about poker offers as well. So if they have everything that they could wish for in your online operation, then I think they will be pretty loyal to your operation. So in a first step, I don't see that happening, but this will be definitely one of the steps to come.
Brilliant. And just before I come to Ben to talk about how that kind of multi-product, multi-vertical positioning sits with the proposed German regulations, Jonathan, what's your take on the things Thomas just talked about in terms of live dealers, streaming, and the crossover across different products?
Yeah, thank you. Look, I'm a big believer in live table games as a sort of natural convergence point for casino customers. And I think let's just take a step back and think, what do my customers do within my venue, within my casino? Well, they love the slots and they love the table games, and you've got to replicate that in the digital channel. So in a simplistic form, when you're starting these operations, I think the baby steps are to mirror the floor. So you have the same content online as you would the same suppliers, the same games that resonate with your customers away from the venue. You have to give the customers what they want. And around live table games, we've done both. So we have the studio proposition with our dealers dressed as they are in our venues, but we've also got the dual play propositions that perform very well, and it gives us as a operator and any land-based casino a USP against digital-only operations. So you're always looking for an advantage, and that's certainly one of us.
Jonathan, for people who are new to the kind of whole iGaming space, can you just break down dual play?
Sorry, Tina. Yeah, absolutely. So a table that sits within your venue with some cameras applied, and you stream that to your digital proposition, and you can play whether you're in the venue or online, the same table at the same time.
Thank you so much. And a question just come through. I don't know if you can answer it, but in your experience, what type of players typically do make the shift to online? Is it table players or is it the slots players?
I guess the standard answer is both. The value of a casino customer is usually quite significant. So that's the sort of backbone of your digital operations, and then you're looking at acquiring customers through digital channels that probably aren't as familiar with a venue or a casino property. So ultimately, you'll have a blend of different customers as you would within your casino itself. You'll have customers that come in for a drink and bet £5, and you'll have others that just come in to game and play significant amounts. So it will vary the same way as it would in your property.
Brilliant, thank you. And Ben, you've been sitting there quietly kind of soaking all this in. What's your take on all of this, including the kind of question which, for example, if we look at the UK, customers can play more than one product at a time. So you can support the cross-selling, you can introduce new products. As I understand it, and very much happy to be corrected by any of you, the German regulations are not so flexible. So in terms of the kind of conversations and comments we've had about people shifting from retail to online, also, how do you see Germany perhaps being slightly different to other jurisdictions that have made the shift historically?
Yeah, I think it's more of a challenge for sure. I think the live casino element's really interesting, especially with the taxation that's currently in place for iGaming based on turnover. You can lower RTPs on slots easy enough. I mean, we've seen that happen in other markets, but for table games with generally like a 3% RTP on roulette or sub 1% RTP on blackjack, and then you impose this sort of turnover tax that's actually higher than the return to player, then it starts to get a little bit difficult. We saw operators in Germany in the past then put the taxation onto the player from the time that they place the bet or on the winnings. So, from a technological side, it actually brings in another element. If they want to play blackjack or baccarat with a sub 1% RTP, do you place the taxation at the point of the bet and put that onto the player? I mean, it brings in another element of complication. The same with regards to how the playing with different products. It's far more seamless in the UK and other markets. Germany, it's a little bit more complicated. Technically, of course, everything's possible. So, and we've sort of alleviated the challenges there, but it still imposes another element of complication that doesn't really exist in other markets. But then again, every market has its own level of complication in some regards, whether it's integration into safe servers or government self-exclusion systems or geolocation that you have in the US, which is not uncomplicated. So yeah, I mean, the government just puts out a list of regulations, and then you need to work out how to sort of work with it, and then hope that it's not so prohibitive that there'll be take away sort of the entertainment value from the player, which is of course what we're all there for, is people to spend their money, be entertained. I question some of the regulations to make it that are in place in some markets that, from a player's perspective, it doesn't seem to be very amusing anymore. In some regards, with long durations between spins, caps on how much you can place a bet. So, as I said, there's always a way from a technological perspective to work out how to implement the regulations, but at the end of the day, it also needs to be good for the operator and also for the customer.
Brilliant, thank you for that. And that's a lovely segue into another question that's come in and a wider conversation. it feels like regulation and regulators is a dominant, or going to be a dominant part of how successful the German market is. Thomas, I'm going to throw this at you. Is there a German regulator? So for instance, the UK has the UK Gambling Commission. Is there a sole regulator at a federal level? How does that kind of framework look like it's going to play out in Germany?
Yeah, a sole regulator is planned, but it will be in effect in 2023. Until then, every state is regulated by the regulators in that state, and the regulation it doesn't make it easier till 2023, and then I'm not sure if 2023 is the actual year that sole regulator will come into force, because they have to establish their offices as well, and this will take some time to get the necessary personnel. So there is a sole regulator planned. It's the only thing to do there. Obviously, if you have a wide gambling opportunity in online businesses anyway, but it depends on when it will be really working, if it's going to be effective or not.
So if I hear you correctly, it's going to start off by state regulators, yeah, with 2023 there being a national regulator.
Yeah.
And you're foreseeing perhaps some complications, delays, conflict of regulations?
Definitely.
How do you as a potential operator in that market plan for that, Thomas?
It's very difficult. So as I said, one of the cons is that nobody really knows when the date is, when these operations can start online, and everybody is looking to different states, to different operators, and see if they are a step ahead or not. And we are quite interested to see when the first operator is going online, but nobody can say when it is.
Ben, from a kind of tech perspective, what kind of challenges does that throw up?
You're always kind of in limbo. So, I mean, as much as Thomas is sitting there waiting to see what happens and see what the first operator does, it's the same from a technological perspective. I mean, we can work with what we have and what we know today. So we've put in the measures that have been already sort of communicated, and now we just need to continue to wait to see how it evolves. It's much like the Netherlands, for example. They passed a regulation, but there's been changes coming out since they've passed it. So, you know, they changed the calculation for the taxation onto the GGR basis. 2 days ago, they came out and said that bonuses are need to be viable for 60 days instead of 30, which is, you know, just generally what's going on in the industry. So it's a little bit frightening from that perspective as well, that you work towards something that's already been sort of passed, and then there's already iterations coming before the official launch date. So, you know, you keep contingency in your teams, and you keep ensure that you've got the space to make changes as they come. But this is, I mean, this is not just prior to regulation, this is also post-regulation. You always have changes, and they might seem minor, like the reduction of taxation in Spain. It's still work that has to be done. All your reports have to be changed. Generally, sometimes reintegrations into safe servers, that sort of thing. So, yeah, I mean, it's just every day is different. But for the 15 years I've been in this industry, every day has been different, which is, I guess, kind of why some of us like it. So.
I was going to say, Jonathan, you've got kind of real elbow deep hands-on experience of all of this, live operations with a shifting regulatory landscape, you know, across the world. Any words of wisdom to, you know, for Thomas in terms of, you've got a land-based operation, you've got this wonderful dream of what it could look like online? and then a state regulator comes along, and then a federal regulator comes along?
I think sort of my experience working in some of the sort of emerging markets is you have to take the regulators on a journey, and I think it sounds like Thomas has got that in a pretty good place already. But it's certainly, if you're a new operator assessing this space, there are a few things you can be doing. The regulators are not the enemy. I mean, when we're launching new propositions, I'll give you an example. We launched probably a world first in a regulated casino market with our single account and wallet proposition about 3 years ago. That was, pretty common in sports betting, but from a casino point of view, it certainly wasn't. And we had to walk the regulators through that, show them at every step of the journey what we were doing, and educate them. And I think that stands true across any jurisdiction. You have to take them on a sort of educational journey. And I don't think their default is to say no. I think you just need to show that you've considered the customer throughout and work with them. Other sort of preparation points, something that comes to mind that is often overlooked, certainly with new casinos coming online, is data. And in theory, you've got one of the biggest advantages with your database, but you've also got GDPR laws to consider and opt-in to marketing. And there's so much you could be doing now before you even picked up the phone to Ben or others to talk about platforms and launching digitally. I think if you could focus on improving the quality of your data at source, that's going to benefit the success of your digital launch on day one.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. See, we're almost coming up to the hour, and I could frankly carry on chatting to you guys for the rest of the evening. But unfortunately, time is not on our side. So just to wrap up, final thoughts. What would you say if you were an operator looking at exploring a land-based operation going online in Germany? What would you say is the single most thing to bear in mind when you're doing that? I'll start with you, Jonathan, as somebody who's kind of been involved in emerging markets.
I think we've probably covered it. So, work with the regulators, realize that digital is a completely different world, and you're going to need some hand-holding to navigate the space. And as a peer to operators in this space, I guess if anybody wants to pick up the phone, I've probably got the longest surname in the industry. I'm pretty easy to find. So feel free to contact me, and I'll help where I can. I think we've probably taken a lot of the pain. We certainly haven't got everything right, but there's some lessons to share there to help people.
Oh, be careful what you wish for when you give out your details on a webinar. Thank you very much for that, Jonathan. Ben, what would you say is the single thing to really keep your eye on?
Yeah, just to reiterate, I guess, what we've been discussing, what Jonathan just said. Just like essentially look at the regulations, as Jonathan said, work with the regulators, look at your own operation, see where your strengths and weaknesses are, see where you possibly need areas to help with the online transition. And then, decide if you want to bring in the technology in-house, or if you're looking for a partner like Gaming Innovation Group, where we can help with different aspects. And, I think also when you choose a partner, just ensure that they've had experience in this sort of transition or operational in the past, because there will be things that come up that you need sort of guidance on, or, if things do come up, you want to know that you've got a shoulder to sort of lean on. And then also with regards to different elements of your operation, ensure that, your partner can sort of support you in those areas going forward. And that you're also not sort of locked into some of these areas for a really long time, and you can actually transition and bring things in-house when it makes sense, because I think that's really important. You can get off to a head start, but there's elements that I mean, personally, I'd always want to bring in-house at some stage, like customer support, anything that's really customer facing or close in contact, because that's the area that you get the most feedback about how your operation is. So yeah, that would be my advice.
Brilliant. Thank you again, Ben. And I'm guessing Gig is a lot faster to Google than Jonathan's name. And the final word to the man currently living the dream. Thomas, what is keeping you awake at night when you think about moving online?
Yeah, so I would like to emphasize one thing. Despite all the uncertainties that are existing on the German market right now, I think it's a very important step that interstate treaty that we have right now allows us to discuss these kind of things. And if it takes months or maybe a year more, it's not going to be that hard. I remember when I went to a convention, an online gambling convention 4 years ago, nobody wanted to talk to me. I was interested in online gambling as a German operator. Nobody wanted to talk to me, and this definitely changed. So despite all that uncertainty, I think it's a good start, and we will have to be a little bit patient, but we are there, and I think it's going to be a good market in Germany. And just to get back to your question, I think I agree with Ben. We should focus on our strengths, let experts deal with the technical side, and focus on your strengths as a land-based casino operator, and implement something that is interesting for your customers. That has to be a bit more interesting that illegal operators offer. And that is my key factor for success, I would say.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. The takeaways I've got here is keep an open dialogue with the regulators, pick the right partner to hold your hand through the transition period, and most importantly, keep the faith. It's going to come. Just might take a little bit of time to get there. Gentlemen, thank you so very much for being so generous with your insight, your knowledge, and sharing your experiences. On that note, I shall hand back to Eva. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Tina. And Thomas just created this wonderful space for me to add in a plug for Amsterdam at the end of September, IGB Live. I can assure you, Thomas, that you will have crowds wanting to speak to you at the show. So I hope to see you there, and obviously as well all of everyone here who participated. We will be very much talking about the shift on to online, and yeah, about the growth in the online gaming business. So yes, 29th of September, Amsterdam, IGB Live. It is happening, a live show. Thank you again, everyone. Thank you to our experts. Thank you to Gaming Innovation Group for helping us bring this webinar to you. Tina, wonderful moderation. As always, great to work with you. Thomas, Ben, Jonathan, great to have you. And yes, I hope to see you all in Amsterdam, and probably sooner for another webinar. Thanks a lot, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.